There is a kind of beauty that only time can create. It does not shine in the obvious way. It does not sparkle like fresh chrome or glow like wet paint under showroom lights. In fact, at first glance, it can look almost disappointing to people who have been trained to equate value with perfection. The leather is worn. The lacquer has softened. The steering wheel carries the polish of old hands. The paint may be thin on the edges. There may be cracks, chips, stains, or fading. Dust may still sit in the corners like a final signature from the decades. And yet, to the right eye, such a machine can feel almost sacred. Because what you are looking at is not neglect. You are looking at survival. Today on Timeless Treasures, we are stepping into one of the most fascinating shifts in all of collector car culture. The rise of the unrestored survivor. The machine that was never overfinished, never stripped back to bare metal, never reimagined through modern taste. The car that made it through the years, still carrying its original materials, its original flaws, and, most importantly, its original truth. And that truth has become priceless. There was a time when the collector world believed restoration was the highest form of respect. A great car was found, tired, worn, sun-faded, mechanically old, and then brought back to life. The body was repainted, the chrome was replated, the interior was retrimmed. The engine bay was detailed until it looked more perfect than it ever had leaving the factory. Every blemish was treated like a problem to be corrected. Every scar of age was seen as something standing between the car and greatness. In that era, the ideal collector car was often the one that looked untouched by time, even if time had been erased aggressively to create that illusion. And for a long while, that made sense. Collectors wanted the fantasy of return. They wanted to see the machine as it must have looked when it was new, when it stood under dealership lights or rolled into a wealthy driveway for the very first time. Restoration gave them that drama. It gave them rebirth. It gave them closure. But over time, something changed. People began to notice that the best restorations were impressive, and yet sometimes strangely empty. Beautiful, yes. Precise, yes. Expensive, often unbelievably so, but also detached from lived history. They looked correct, yet somehow disconnected from the human story that had made the car worth saving in the first place. And at the same time, survivor cars began to reveal a different kind of power. A car wearing original paint might not have perfect gloss, but its surface told a deeper story. It showed where sunlight had reached it year after year. It showed where hands had lifted the hood. It showed where doors had been opened, where luggage had rubbed against a sill, where weather had entered, where time had settled. An original interior, even worn, carried a kind of intimacy that new upholstery could never reproduce. The fabric had memory. The steering wheel had memory. The knobs, the pedals, the armrest, the headliner, the trunk lining, all of it carried evidence. And evidence matters. Because in the highest levels of collecting, authenticity eventually becomes more powerful than perfection. That is the first great truth behind priceless patina. Patina is not simply age. It is not just old paint or surface wear. Patina, when it is real and when it is meaningful, is physical proof that a machine has lived honestly through time. That honesty is what makes survivor cars so emotionally magnetic. A restored car tells you what someone wanted the past to look like. A survivor tells you what the past actually left behind. And the difference between those two things is enormous. Take an unrestored grand touring car from the 1950s or 60s. Maybe the paint has become thinner on the roof and upper surfaces. Maybe the chrome is no longer mirror perfect, but softly muted. Maybe the leather has cracked in the exact place where the driver's elbow rested across years of use. Maybe the dashwood has dulled slightly under sunlight. Maybe the carpets show wear, but only where feet repeatedly entered and exited the cabin. To some people, those are flaws. To others, they are biography. And biography is irreplaceable. The reason unrestored survivors have risen so dramatically in prestige is not just because they are rare, it is because they preserve information. An original car teaches us how the materials truly age. It teaches us how certain paints faded, how certain leathers softened, how chrome survived, how plastics discolored, how shut lines sat when the factory actually assembled them, how switchgear wore after real use, how wood veneers changed with climate and time. A restored car may be cleaner, but it can also lie. Not intentionally, perhaps, but restoration always carries interpretation. The restorer chooses the shade, the finish, the stitching, the sheen, the plating quality, the level of detail, the extent of correction. Even when highly skilled and well-intentioned, the process introduces modern decisions into an old object. A survivor resists that. It remains a witness. And once collectors understood that, the market began to change. Cars that might once have been restored immediately were suddenly being studied instead. Paint depth was measured, upholstery was photographed, hardware finishes were examined, paper labels in the glove box, chalk marks on hidden panels, factory stamps beneath carpets, delivery stickers on windows, original tools in trunks. All of it became part of the car's authority. Because if a great machine could make it across half a century without losing its original self, then it had become something much more important than merely collectible. It had become reference. This shift did not happen only because the market became more sophisticated, though that is part of the story. It also happened because restored cars became too common in a certain sense. The best marques, the best models, the most prestigious names, many of them had already passed through the restoration cycle so many times that collectors started craving something deeper. Not cleaner, deeper. They wanted evidence of first paint, original trim, factory undercoating, delivery documents, service records, dealer decals, period luggage, unrestored engine bays, handwritten notes tucked in manuals, tire brand markings, fragile upholstery that somehow remained intact because no one had improved it out of existence. This is why the phrase crown jewels is appropriate. The finest unrestored survivor cars are not valued merely because they are old. They are valued because they preserve a complete world. A great original car carries not only its brand identity, but its factory culture, its era's material standards, its owner's habits, and the environmental conditions that shaped its life. It is one object containing many histories at once. And in an age obsessed with over-restoration, digital sameness, and visual perfection, that kind of layered truth feels almost revolutionary. Of course, not every unrestored car is valuable simply because it remains unrestored. There is an important distinction here, and serious collectors understand it immediately. Patina is not the same thing as ruin. A true survivor is not just a worn car. It is a car that still possesses coherence. The paint may be aged, but the body remains fundamentally sound. The interior may show wear, but it has not dissolved into neglect. The chrome may be softened, but the car still carries itself with dignity. The machine still feels like itself. Once that coherence is lost, once corrosion destroys the structure, once major components vanish, once neglect overwhelms identity, the argument for preservation becomes weaker, and restoration or rescue becomes necessary. That is why survivor culture is not laziness. It is not an excuse to avoid work. It is a discipline of restraint. You must know when to conserve and when to intervene. You must know how far to clean, how little to replace, how carefully to stabilize. You must understand that preserving originality is often harder than restoring over it, because preservation requires humility. It demands that the current owner accept that the car's greatest beauty may already be there, and that their job is not to overwrite it. That may be the rarest skill in the collector world. To leave enough alone. Some of the most celebrated survivor cars ever found prove this point beautifully. A lightly worn sports car still wearing factory paint. A luxury coupe hidden for decades in dry storage, its interior untouched. A grand American convertible with original upholstery, soft edges, and just enough fading to remind you that summer once passed through it again and again. A formal pre-war car whose owner died, whose family locked the garage, and whose machine remained exactly where history left it. When those cars emerge, the best response is not always restoration. Sometimes the best response is reverence. Clean it carefully, stabilize the mechanicals, preserve the papers, conserve the leather, protect the surfaces, document everything. Then let the machine remain what it is, a survivor, not a reinvention. This approach has also changed how value is understood. There was a time when many collectors assumed a full restoration automatically increased a car's worth. Today, that is no longer guaranteed. In fact, with certain rare and desirable models, stripping away original finishes can actually destroy the very thing that made the car exceptional. A first paint car can carry authority a repainted example never will. An original interior can command admiration, even if worn. A car with factory-correct age may feel more convincing, more honest, and more valuable than one restored to exaggerated brilliance. Because once originality is gone, it cannot truly be recreated. You can repaint a fender, you can retrim a seat, you can replace chrome, you can reproduce decals. But you cannot manufacture old truth. That is why auctions, concours events, and serious collectors now speak of preservation classes, survivor standards, and original condition awards. The culture has matured enough to recognize that the untouched car is not incomplete. It is often the most complete car of all. And if you step back from the collector market for a moment, there is something even more moving behind all of this. Survivor cars satisfy a hunger modern life rarely feeds. They give us contact with continuity. In a world where objects are updated endlessly, replaced casually, and redesigned before they can gather memory, a true survivor offers something startling: permanence with evidence. It says that age is not necessarily disfigurement. It says that wear can become beauty. It says that a machine can still be noble after the shine softens. That message resonates far beyond automobiles. And perhaps that is why people who are not even deep car enthusiasts can feel the power of a survivor instantly. They may not know the model code, the production numbers, or the option package, but they know they are standing in front of something honest. They know the object has not been sanitized into generic prettiness. They know the machine still carries the texture of life. That texture is what makes survivor cars feel almost emotional to encounter. An untouched dashboard can be more moving than a perfect repaint. A worn seat bolster can say more than a new leather kit. Faded original paint can carry more atmosphere than the most expensive modern respray. Because the best survivor cars do not only preserve design, they preserve time. Nowhere is this more powerful than with luxury cars. A survivor luxury car is especially haunting because it allows you to see what privilege looked like once it stopped performing. The soft wear on rear seat armrests, the original vanity mirror, the deep carpets, the faint scent of old wool, wood, and leather, the subtle wear on a chauffeur's controls, the insignia in the trunk, the delivery plate, the little details that restoration often erases because they seem imperfect. In reality, those imperfections are the very things that turn a car into a historical environment. And when such a car remains intact, it becomes more than a collector's prize. It becomes a cultural artifact. That is why the best unrestored survivor cars have become the new crown jewels. Not because they are flawless, because they are irreplaceably true. They are the rarest kind of object in a restoration-hungry world, one that survived without surrendering its identity. They ask more of us as viewers and more of us as caretakers. They demand patience, attention, humility, and the ability to recognize value where the modern eye has been trained to see only imperfection. But once that shift happens, once you truly begin to see patina not as damage, but as preserved time, it becomes almost impossible to go back. You stop asking whether the paint is perfect. You start asking whether the story is still there. You stop wondering how the car might look after restoration. You start wondering what it has already witnessed. And that is the moment the old hierarchy collapses. Because suddenly, the most desirable machine in the room is not the brightest, not the newest restoration, not the one with the deepest shine. It is the one that still feels alive with its own past. The one wearing its years without apology. The one that made it all the way here, still carrying itself, still holding together, still speaking in the original language of its age. That is priceless patina. Not deterioration, not laziness, not incompleteness. A crown jewel made of evidence. A survivor made beautiful by honesty. And in the end, perhaps that is why these cars matter so much now. Because in preserving them, we are not just saving machines. We are saving proof that time can deepen value, that truth can outlast polish, and that the most beautiful thing an old car can sometimes do is simply remain itself. If you believe the most meaningful machines are the ones that still carry the fingerprints of history, subscribe to Timeless Treasures and tell me, would you preserve the patina or restore the car back to perfection?